The only sound that echoes through the tunnel is the soft padding of the footsteps of your party. In the back, a torch approaches, threatening to dull your sight and even allow, at certain occasions, color to creep back into your periphery. You shake it off and stride further ahead, keeping as quiet as you can. You stop quickly to the sound of settling rock and signal to your party behind you to do the same. That particular sound is a little out of place in this smooth-cut underground cavern. Sweat begins to bead on your forehead, and you quickly and mathematically begin to evaluate your decision. Is the hide of an Umber Hulk really worth 50 gold pieces? Really? Before you can make your conclusion, there's a sound like an explosion and the torch goes out. You whip around to find 2 even holes in either side of the walls, but one of your companions is missing. His sword and extinguished torch lie still on the ground where he should have been. Another sound of rock detonating, and you whirl around, dagger at the ready, to find a set of forearm-long mandibles inches from your neck and a set of small beady eyes gazing into your soul. The world around you begins to stretch and warp in endless ways with no discernible pattern. The only sound in this void is that of your dagger clattering to the stone ground. Roll a charisma save. Hey there, creatures, and welcome to Encounter This, a podcast exploration of the creatures from Dungeons & Dragons and the lore that surrounds them.
Hello there, listeners, and welcome to un autre episode of Encounter This. That's French for another, by the way. I am, of course, your co-host Freeman, the obligatory Hulkmania pun Easton, and today James Umber Pressure Kid will be bringing us through the creature known as the Umber Hulk.
I have never had such a hard time coming up with nicknames as I did for this episode.
I mean, I feel like they've been getting worse and worse.
They definitely are. I spent like 2.5 hours on a rhyming dictionary trying to find something.
That's pure, beautiful evidence that you put entirely more useless time into this show than I do. You put loads of useful time in too, but man, you tag on 2.5 hours in a rhyming dictionary. That's a lot.
Yeah, I just sat here in my chair with like my hood up over my eyes, and I just kept going. Like, what rhymes with umber? Amber, umber dark. I almost went with umber herd.
Lumber? How about lumber?
Yeah,
James the lumbering kid.
Yeah, or I guess James the Umberjack kid. It was a tough one, and that's because there's almost nothing. Well, there's exactly nothing outside of Dungeons & Dragons for this week's creature, which is the Umber Hulk, which can be found in the Monster Manual on 292.
I get so distracted you had to finish my job for me.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm actually really proud of Umber Pressure. That's
Umber Pressure
my favorite
is really
Queen
good. Yeah. I'm really pleased with that one.
I really wish it was in the public domain so we could just use that as our theme song.
One day, when we're really old, maybe. We'll re-release this episode.
For sure.
Set your calendar down.
Yeah, that sounds like something we're going to do for sure.
All right, tell me, okay, silliness aside, right out of the gate, tell me about the Umber Hulk.
The Umber Hulk is fucking weird and not what I expected at all.
Perfect.
All right, and we'll see you next week. So these guys are actually pretty interesting, if not uniquely interesting. We had a conversation the other week about something that we're going to talk about today, and I think it might get under your skin, so I'm excited for that. Primarily, these things are known as the horror from below the Earth's surface, and they're kind of a cross between a gorilla and a beetle. Most people, if you've ever seen any art for D&D, you would have seen this creature because this is a Dungeons & Dragons owned creature. It's a unique creature from TSR back in the day, and it is now directly trademarked and I believe copywritten by Wizards of the Coast.
So does that make this the first one we've done since Illithids?
Yep.
That's trademarked? Okay, cool.
Yeah, sweet. There's only a few of them. It's Illithids, Umber Hulk, the Bullets, and a couple others, but
Beholders,
yeah. These are their three big ones. So Beholders will be the next really big one.
Cool.
So they've kind of varied in size over editions. So accounts of them vary. So they can be from 1.4 meters up to 2.7 meters tall, which is about 4.5 to 9 feet.
Okay, big variance, yeah.
Yeah, and they max out at 790 kilos or 1,750 pounds, which is just a little over the weight of a full-grown Holstein cow.
Okay.
So the reason for this is that in 3rd edition, they were standard size, but they became large in 4th and 5th edition.
Gotcha.
They have these giant mandibles that can actually be seen throughout all 5 editions. They're probably one of their bigger aspects. These things are about 20 centimeters or 8 inches long, and behind them are rows and rows of sharp teeth, kind of like a shark's teeth, like several different rows.
Okay.
It's speculated that these are only used to shred flesh after combat.
Mm-hmm.
But as we'll see later, encounters with Umber Hulks are challenging at best to be taken at face value.
Is that a pun? Face value, as in the mandibles on their face?
Oh, I mean, that's a stretch even for me.
Okay, unintentional pun.
Yeah.
Barely. Okay,
barely.
That's fine.
Yeah. One of the things I didn't realize about these creatures just by looking at their art, because I've only seen them from really 5th edition, is they actually have 4 eyes. They have 2 sets of eyes. One is 2 large compound eyes, and then above those in the forehead are 2 much, much smaller eyes. And these exist throughout all 5 editions, and you can even see them on the 1st edition, but their eyes are on the side of their head above their mandibles, and we'll make sure we throw up that 1st edition art on Instagram.
For sure. Okay, because as soon as you started saying that, I went straight to the artwork that you posted here. And it's so very subtle on the 5e artwork. It's incredibly obvious on the 3e artwork.
Yep. And the 2e is pretty obvious. And the 4e is, if you know what you're looking for, they're right there. Yeah.
For sure. But the fact they're on the side, I almost wouldn't have caught that on the 1st edition art.
No, I had to really look for it. Yeah.
Yeah. Because you said it's all 5 editions, and I was already going, I think you're missing one. And then you said it, and I was like, oh fuck, there they are.
Yeah, you can kind of see the eye ridge in the shading of the art. Like this art's 1st edition art is really well done for these creatures. Yeah. It looks goofy as fuck, but to portray it as it is really, really well
done. Also really good, yeah, totally. Yeah. Wicked, yeah. I'm digging pretty much all the artwork across the board in this one, which is a first, I think.
Yeah, the 4E is actually my favorite for this one.
It's pretty cool. It's very anime.
Yeah, I think that's probably why I like it. So we'll make sure we throw up the 1st and the 4th edition art for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
And in 2nd edition on, their skin was covered in a chitin, which is said to be as thick as full plate. So it's tougher than steel, but it's also patched with hair-like feelers, like very insectoid. And you can see that on all of the art except for the 1st edition art where it doesn't really come through. And they have these strong ape-like arms ending in huge claws capable of ripping through rock. And these are prevalent in all 5 editions, and they look really cool in the 2nd edition art specifically. I think these huge gorilla arms covered in these beetle plates with these claws on the end.
Yeah, they really have that like big, wide shouldered, long armed stance going on. Yeah, the
more you look at it, the more you really come across that it really is a cross between a gorilla and a beetle.
Yeah, from 3E on, it's they put a larger emphasis on the insectoid look, especially in the legs.
And contrary to most of this art, their hides are mostly black, with their stomachs being a yellowish gray. So,
okay,
yeah, and that's for camouflage purposes.
And it seems to be again 2E reflects that the best.
Yeah,
where the rest kind of don't really at all. Well, 1E's just black and white, so
yeah, that lore may just be from 1st and 2nd edition and then kind of negated through the rest of them, but I felt it was worth noting just because of what these creatures are and where they're located. So usually they're thought of as dull or unintelligent, This is factually wrong. They are capable of planning and rational thought, though they have no need really for plans, magic, numbers, or technology. They're solitary beings, and they believe if a situation needs more than strength, they can just tunnel about until they get whatever they want, because they are burrowers. And what they want is usually just food.
Yeah, I mean, fair enough. Yeah, especially if you're living below the earth, that's got to be the main priority at all times.
Exactly, and they're actually they're really cool. They're ambush predators, so they'll burrow into walls and lie in wait for creatures to pass on the other side, using those tiny hairs we talked about, sensing for vibration, where it'll blow out of the wall and then attack them.
I love that so much, like so much.
Like trapdoor spider-esque.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm maybe jumping ahead here. I don't know if you have something for this, but to burrow into a wall, especially a stone wall, and then to mask said spot you've burrowed into and still have like your hairs standing out. I mean, is there a function for that? Do they have a technique for that? Like, that's an extraordinary thing to accomplish.
They don't like ambush out of the hole that they burrowed into. They burrow in and then work their way around and then use so like you've got that perfectly smooth wall that hasn't been attacked or anything like that. And they'll come out of
it. And then it's the hairs on their body. They're not sticking out of the wall, but rather just sensing the vibrations through the stone.
Exactly. Okay. Yeah. Mechanically, they have tremor sense, which is to sense vibrations.
Gotcha. And then they just have the ability, just at least enough strength to like burst what thin amount of smooth wall they've tucked themselves behind and just like totally shock you.
They certainly do. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're actually really cool creatures, even if they are pretty basic.
Yeah, sure. Well, we've come across that a lot lately. I feel like, we've had some basic ones that are just really grabbing our attention, which is fun.
Because they just want food, they've been known to raid Underdark settlements, even though it has been documented that they mostly eat purple worms, ankh eggs, but apparently they love the taste of humanoids.
Of course they do. That's cool. Mostly purple worms and ankh eggs, or just mostly purple worms?
Purple worms and ankh eggs and humanoid flesh were all kind of up there at the same place. Purple worms and ankh eggs were listed first.
Do we know if they gather in communities at all?
Kind of. You're jumping ahead a little bit. They do mate, but they don't really live in communities. They are solitary predators.
Okay, take me at your pace, and I'll try and hold on to that thought.
For sure, yeah. So they live to about 50 years, even though females have been known to live to closer to 75. And in other editions, they come in a few different sizes. So there are smaller Umber Hulks, so, Umber Hulks that live up to like 35, 40, and they're known as Umber Ravagers. And there are older Umber Hulks, which can grow really big in size, up to 16 feet tall or 4 imperial tons, and they are known, and I quote, truly horrid Umber Hulks. And that's the mechanical name for them, is truly horrid Umber Hulks.
Truly horrid Umber Hulks. It doesn't exactly roll off the tongue, but I like it. Definitely colloquial.
And their young are known as Hulklings, which I just thought was fantastic.
It's perfect. What else would they called? Umberlings? That's
you know what? You're absolutely right. And because nothing can be all good, they speak a harsh and brutal language of their own design called Hulkish.
Like we just it's like, why bother naming it?
Right?
It's like utterly pointless.
Why can't it just be deep speech?
Why can't they just communicate amongst themselves in their own fashion and just leave it to your imagination? Why are we?
Yep, but it's named
calling it Hulk?
The 5th edition monster manual as Umber Hulk, but in old editions it's known as Hulkish, which is so much better.
You know why they're doing that?
Because they hate me. They heard our Yetis episode and they hate me.
No, it's because of spells like comprehend language. They need to have something to give you. I think it's a mechanical technicality on the design when they in the publishing. They're just like, okay, we got to name it because comprehend languages, it's got to have a name. Like, well, no, you could just say yes, you understand them.
Yeah, it'd be easy enough.
Go to town, go past it, right? But Jesus, Hulkish.
For the record, in 5th edition, it is just called Umber Hulk, but Hulkish is a way better name.
It is 100%.
Yeah. So it consists of mostly hisses and grunts and gestures and movements. I thought of like bees and stuff like that just kind of buzz and dance. I like to think that's how an Umber Hulk would communicate because of their beetle-ish design, but I don't know how beetles communicate. So
don't cockroaches hiss as well?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't fuck with cockroaches.
Yeah, they're nasty, but I think they do. So I'm with you on the bees, but I would tag some cockroach in there for sure.
Yeah, I'm not ever gonna tag cockroaches in anywhere. I do not. I don't deal with cockroaches. Yeah, but some of the smarter ones have been lucky enough to learn or find their way into learning Terran or deep speech. So I don't understand why it couldn't have just been Terran to begin with, or they speak a dialect of Terran, but nope, it's got to be its own fucking language.
I mean, small peek ahead. Do they have any Earth elemental properties? Just
sort of.
Yes or no? Yeah. Okay. All right. So Terran might add up. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess kind of depend. I guess it depends on what you think of as like a Terran property.
Mm-hmm. A deep speech. I generally associate that with aberrations, and in particular the definition of aberrations in which illithids fit into, as in like there's a chance they're alien, not from this planet, therefore they have this unique language that's unspeakable or generally difficult, if impossible to speak by most sort of races or creatures or species of like the general planet or Toriel. How do you feel like that plays into this creature?
I think it's fine just because it is Umber Hulks aren't mechanically aberrations, but they feel like it in all of their lore. So I'm fine with it. There's so little of this that feels like it's actually a monstrosity, which spoilers, they're a monstrosity. There's so little of their mechanics and their lore that feels like a monstrosity. I get it. Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure it's to make them not as rare as aberrations, but they feel like aberrations to me.
I mean, the more you say gorilla mixed with beetle, like that spells monstrosity to me. Sort of what's the chimeric kind of blend, right?
Right.
If not technically one. But
they're pretty alien though.
Especially that's actually true too, because when you get to something insectile, you do tend to think alien, possibly not of this place.
Yeah. Well, I guess when they die, their bodies are harvested by kobolds and goblins to make tools and armor and spell components, which I thought was really cool. Like this goblin walking around with this Umber Hulk mandible sickle, like kite and shield.
Fuck yeah. That actually reminds me of, I'm trying to remember what they're called, but there's an Elder Scrolls, in the Elder Scrolls series of games, there is a type of creature you tend to encounter them underground, and they're like blind, but they hear you really well, so you got to sneak around, and they always have like chitinous weapons and shields, and if they have armor, usually it's chitinous as well. And I think they tend to, I think they breed these chitinous creatures or materials to like form these things or create them and what's the word I'm looking for? Craft them. So it usually reminded me of that, which I think is really cool.
Right. That makes a lot of sense. When they're alive, most people leave them alone because they are powerful, known to be so, and very predatory. Most that encounter them don't survive, but the few that do remember very little, and we'll get into that a little bit later, mechanics. Sure. They can, in fact, burrow through solid rock, and the hard chitin of its body can withstand cave-ins, so it is quite hard.
Cool. It might get squashed for a moment, but then it'll burrow out shortly after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, like cool. It's really, really tough. Hence the comparison to plate mail earlier. Mm-hmm. And the few that do survive encounters focus on the monster's confusing gaze, to those that live in the Underdark, the Umber Hulk has kind of a supernatural status. Like the theory is that once you spot one, it's already too late for you.
Oh, okay. So like a superstition kind of thing.
Yeah, they're kind of like a bogeyman, like for those denizens anyway.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I love a little bit of like local myth and legend that surrounds something. It's fun to play with.
Well, the fun fact for this episode, because that's pretty much it for lore, period, is that there is a dwarven expression known as chasing an Umber Hulk, and that refers to a task that's very dangerous but could have great reward at the end. Because in earlier editions, Umber Hulks, there was lore around Umber Hulks that their dens were made of precious minerals. That is not currently true in 5th edition, but it's a cool superstition.
It's a bit of a shame it's not the same anymore because you know we've covered some stuff recently. I feel like that revolves around precious metals and this sort of thing. So it's kind of a cool premise to create conflict between Underdark creatures. The Umber Hulk tends to live in those areas with precious metals, but then you have say a rust monster seeking them out, or maybe an Azer looking to hunt some down.
Yeah, I think it's not explicitly denounced in 5th edition, but it's pretty heavily implied that that's no longer the case in the lore.
Right. Just like not included straight up.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, if that's the Umber Hulk that you want to run, that's the Umber Hulk that you want to run. That's cool.
Mm.
There is really no cultural lore for these things. The only thing I really found is that a lot of people seem to want to see this as the big bad evil guy in this 4th season of Stranger Things.
Oh, I have not watched that.
I watched the first 2 seasons. They were fine.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the first 2. I think I watched the 3rd one, but I'm a little bit vague now. It's been a while.
Yeah, so the 4th one isn't out yet, but there's a lot of speculation that the Umber Hulk or something like the Umber Hulk will appear.
Oh, so it's like pre-speculation.
Yeah. And, all around it's just cool that it's an original D&D character and that it survived for over 40 years, so.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is cool. There was something really lovely about having a creature that's been around for a long time, but it's not something that, when someone, even someone who's like, reasonably familiar with D&D, it's not likely when you say Umber Hulk, they go, oh yeah, I heard about that. At least I don't think so. But yet it's survived for so long. It's like this sort of under the radar key or core sort of world building creature. And I love that. It's something about that I really, really love.
Yeah, it's really neat. It definitely flies under the radar.
Oh my God, I hate you so much.
I waited until I heard you take a drink.
Oh my God. That's the worst.
Well, and I guess that brings us to the ads.
Jesus Christ.
Speaking of the thing I'm making Freeman choke on, Blackmail Stout by Strange Fellows. Get it in ya.
Yeah, get it in you. Jam it in your maw. Throw it down your gullet.
Past the mandibles.
Right past them. Let it create waves on every row of teeth. the beautiful Blackmail Stout, complete with lactose.
It's delicious. I'm drinking one. He's drinking one.
Oh my God, you're killing me.
You should drink one. This is what happens when we record before fucking midnight.
Oh God. Oh, it's beautiful.
I'm good. I'm feeling it today.
Right.
I'm on my game.
Yeah, you are on your game. You are on your game.
Anyway, these things are I want to love these things. I really do. They don't make it easy.
Here comes the criticism. It's always in the mechanics, isn't it? It's always right there.
Well, the lore is just so good. And, the mechanics aren't bad. I like the mechanics.
Okay.
One of them makes it very difficult for me.
Okay, sure.
They're a CR5, 93 HP, AC of 18 to reflect that really, really thick chitin.
Right.
They are large in 5th edition, a monstrosity and chaotic evil.
Mm-hmm.
The languages they speak in 5th edition is Umber Hulk, but you might as well just cross that out and write Hulkish next to it.
Hulkish, yeah, 100%.
They've got a 30-foot movement speed and a 20-foot burrow speed.
Mm-hmm.
dark vision 120 feet, tremor sense 60 feet. So that all adds up pretty well.
Yeah. 20 of a burrow speed's really solid, actually. Especially through solid stone.
Well, we'll get to that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
I guess that's not how burrow works. Burrow's through like dirt. Through solid stone, it is different.
Oh, okay. All right. Cool.
Yeah. So the only stat worth mentioning is that they have a 20 strength, which is what you commented on earlier, that they have enough strength to blow out of the solid rock, which they do.
Yeah. Good. That's good. I'm okay with that.
Yeah. So they have 2 abilities. The first one is Tunneler, which means they can move at half burrow speed through solid rock, and they so 10 feet per round. Mm-hmm. They leave behind a 5-foot wide and 8-foot high tunnel. So this is kind of where that burrow speed comes.
Yeah.
The second ability is called Confusing Gaze, and this is a tough one for me to swallow.
Okay. This is where okay. We've had some conversations about gazes recently. In fact, I've had some issues coming to terms with gaze attacks.
I don't think you're gonna like this one, but I don't want to put anything on you. So
all right.
When a creature starts its turn within 30 feet of the Umber Hulk and can see its eyes, that is italicized for a reason, is a DC 15 Charisma save, or they are confused for the round.
Yeah. On
a fail, the player cannot take reactions and rolls 1d8 to determine its actions. 1 to 4, the creature does nothing. 5 to 6, it takes no actions, but it moves its full complement in a random direction. And 7 to 8, it makes a melee attack versus a random target within its reach. If no target within its reach, it does nothing.
Right.
PCs can avert their eyes at the start of their turn, but they are unable to see the Umber Hulk until the start of their next turn. If they meet the Umber Hulk's eyes, they immediately roll the Charisma save.
So here's the issue at the end of the day. And I honestly have no issue with that full description. The issue is that the majority of the time, people playing D&D and or tabletop RPG do not employ facing as a mechanic. And this is what we talked about.
Oh, okay. That's not where I thought you were going to take issue, but...
No, yeah, okay. Facing is 100% the issue for me when it comes to these sorts of attacks. Even then, it's not an attack. It's a passive ability, essentially.
Yeah.
So, and they pretty much cover it right in that first line. And they say, within 30 feet of the Umber Hulk and is able to see the Umber Hulk's eyes. Now, you can sort of pseudo justify that it's moving really fast in combat and therefore moving its head all around, so all 30 feet in a full circle is covered. It's kind of lazy but easy to do. And as a player, having fairly recently gone through something similar to this, more or less, and then also as a DM having struggled to trying to employ certain gaze effects and not being happy with how they turned out, I hate the lazy, easy approach on these things. That's where my biggest issue is coming in. And I think when these come up, I think they're important mechanics. I'm not so sure I buy it specifically with this creature. But regardless of that, facing has to be employed there. Otherwise, it just, for me, it breaks the immersion on both sides of the screen.
Okay.
You have to be able to see the creature's eyes. You have to be within its gaze. And unless it has a 360-degree gaze, no bueno. That's why aura effects are exist. Now, I don't know if we've covered an aura effect on creatures, but I know for a fact they exist for paladins, let's say, in 5e. Yeah.
And we have for hags, for sure.
Well, yeah, that's right. Because we did talk about this in our last encounter, in Rime of the Frost Mating. There was 2 separate things that I wasn't aware of. So, an aura is a full sort of radius, all-encompassing sort of area. A gaze, sort of passive effect, should be considered, by facing, and as should a gaze attack, which is a more active effect, where they turn and they, or even just like with, say with like a banshee where they wail, right? The banshees wail, like it's not much different than a gaze in that they do it in a conal direction. Yeah. So the issue I have after that little rant, the issue I have with this is that it shouldn't be within 30 feet if you see their eyes. It should be, it casts its eyes at you in a 30-foot cone. And that's who's affected. Now, that makes it more of an action which would take a standard action, which is not what they're going for here, but it is a way to look at it. So if you want to, that's how you consider it facing. For anyone that's listening, that's like not sure how to approach it based on this sort of rant. You don't have to spend a standard action necessarily, but you have to emphasize, or you should emphasize, that it faces this way and in a 30-foot cone. That's the people who are affected. Choose your direction and say it that way. And I think that's what's missing from this description. End rant.
Okay. I agree with you completely. I think you're 100% right. I thought you were going to take issue with the fact that there's a 75% chance if this player fails that they do nothing on their turn. Like, there's a DC 15 Charisma save, which is pretty fucking high for a CR5 creature.
Yeah.
And then they just do nothing.
Yeah. No. I would if I played it as if I was willing now at this point in my career and time with TTRPGs, if I was willing to play it as a 30-foot radius, circumference or whatever, that's too powerful. That's where I would take issue. But if you employ the facing, like I've described, I don't think it's too bad, because it gives the players an opportunity to circumvent that tactic. It is, right. You're not wrong, 75% chance. That's really huge. It's extremely debilitating. But by their own words, it shouldn't work in a 360-degree angle. They just haven't given you how to do it appropriately is the problem.
That's fair.
So, yeah.
And they can avert their eyes as a free action, so they can just not have to roll the save.
Right. For sure. And then what, by D&D rules, would that be like a disadvantage if they try to attack while averting their eyes?
I don't know, but that's the best I would give anyone.
For sure. Yeah. And that would be a good way to approach it. If someone wants to avert their eyes, cost them nothing. If you desperately want to cost them something, make it a bonus action at most. And then, and then give them disadvantage on their attacks whilst they're averting their eyes.
Yep. That makes sense to me. Yeah, I wouldn't have read that any other way, but it's good that you put it out there that this is, in fact, a conal effect. They just don't want to word it that way. Yeah, no, and it straight up is. Yeah, I don't know why they don't want to word it that way, but it's just not. It is passive, it's not active, but it is conal. Straight up. Yep, agree completely. Sweet. All right. Well, I don't like the percentages on that confusion. I think confusion should be a status, not specific to this particular effect. And I'm honestly at this point not even sure if confusion isn't a status. I thought it was a condition. So that makes this very confusing to me. Yeah, so I see where you're coming from. My mind immediately goes to, what we've been playing the most in the last year, which is Starfinder, and their confused condition operates on a D100 scale. And so this is something that you could arguably employ without breaking the balance. I think the percentages are the same, though. So you have a 25% chance of acting normally, a 25% chance of doing nothing and babbling incoherently, a 25% chance of dealing 1d8 plus strength modifier to yourself with the item within your hand, or a 25% chance of attacking the nearest creature. Otherwise, if you have no one to attack on that latter one, you do nothing and babble incoherently. So, work out that percentage of chance how you will. But yeah, so it's not far off from these percentages. And, Pathfinder and Starfinder favor D100, whereas 5e does not, which is fine. I mean, everybody's got a D8. And here in 5e, I have this, the thing that sort of seems to more or less replace that self-harm is just moving in a random direction, which is very forgiving, I suppose, by comparison. Yeah, as you were talking about that, I realized why this isn't a condition, and it's because the PCs can avert their eyes. Like Starfinder, once you're confused, you're kind of just confused until you're not, whereas this is kind of case by case. Right. It's literally only affects you on your next turn. By the time the turn after comes around, it depends on whether or not you're still in the gaze. It's not a lasting effect. It's not round by round. Yeah. So you can just avert your eyes, move out of the gaze, and then act normally. So for sure. Yeah. So, yeah, okay. I've talked myself out of it being a condition. Nice. All right, well, what else they got? It has multi-attack, 3 attacks, 2 claws, 1 mandible. They are +8 to hit, both of them. Both of them are 5-foot reach. The claws are 1d8 plus 5 slashing, and the mandibles are 2d8 plus 5 slashing for a total possible damage of 4d8 and 20 slashing around.
Right.
So that's pretty good for a CR5 creature who can theoretically has a 75% chance of taking an action away from anybody it's attacking.
Now, you said these remind me where these creatures on sight, they tend to just be really aggressive. Like they're ambush predators. Once they've made their ambush, are they the type of creature that sort of strategizes and tries to aim that confusing gaze, knowing they have that property, or do they just attack straight up?
No, they will try and move around the battlefield with the tunneler and like burrow around and try to get the best of you. They're not if a straight on attack isn't working, their only other tactic is to burrow through the rock and try and get another ambush on you.
Okay, cool. That's actually a really cool visual. It's something that I did not think of. In that, in the midst of combat, they might just like charge into a wall and disappear. And then a couple of rounds later, and they charge into that wall, and that wall like seals off behind them to some degree. Unless you have a burrow speed or want to take a whole lot of time, you're not really going to follow them. Right?
Well, they specifically leave behind a tunnel with the tunneler ability.
Oh, they do. Okay, all right.
Yeah.
So do you want to follow them in there? Is the big question then?
Right, and there's nothing saying that that's their movement is the tunnel speed, and then their action is to collapse the tunnel behind them. Like there's nothing saying they can't do that as their action.
Yeah. But even then, like even if they don't do that, like if they spend their turn bursting through and starting the tunnel, like you could take an opportunity to attack them in the back for real quickly, maybe. But after they're in and they keep tunneling, do you follow them? Because then it's 1-on-1 at that point, and that's when 48 plus 15 can really fuck your day up.
Plus 20. Each one of those is plus 5. Oh, God. Oh no, it is plus 15.
Yeah, right. Yeah, 15.
That gets pretty vicious right off the bat. For a CR5 creature who has an AC of 18. Like, do you want to fuck with that at 5th level?
No, probably not. Probably not at all. Crazy.
But that's pretty much it for the Umber Hulk. There's no cultural lore. There's a little bit of D&D lore, but it doesn't have the same kind of love that Beholders and Mind Flayers do.
Sure, yeah.
And the mechanics are relatively straightforward, other than the confusing gaze, which I'm not sold on, but I like more than I did when we started this episode.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it takes a discerning sort of perspective or eye to employ that in a way that's believable and immersive, and sort of as I ranted about. But I think it's important, and it's one of those things I wouldn't recommend. Actually, kind of wouldn't recommend if anyone listening actually wants to employ this creature in the way that I've described and you've agreed upon. I would not recommend this creature to that person if they're brand new. Get a feel for the game first, but once you're there, that's the sort of thing. If you can really employ that facing mechanic and the conal aspect and have it be really dynamic and diverse and constantly changing, it could really put your players on their toes and make them really rethink their strategies, which I think is really cool. That's probably my the most controversial part of this creature is potentially the coolest part as a group sort of experience.
Yeah, absolutely. It is definitely a singular creature, or at least it's unique in its essence from what we've studied so far. And I like it. I like the longer we do this, the more we like the simplicity of creatures. And I think this has, as usual, it has everything in the lore reflected mechanically, and this thing can take a punch. And it can certainly give them as well as fuck your players up. So it's not only is it a debuff, it's a controller and it's a tank. Like, these are the kind of stat blocks that are what I think of when I think of one creature versus a party. These are designed to be solo fighters. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And just looking at some of the extra stats too, when you said early on that, they're supposed to have chitin is a sort of a shell that is reflective of full plate, and you said might not reflect or is debatably reflected in the stat block. 18 is pretty solid for a natural armor. specifically. But also on top of that, they have a dex of 13. Well, that's not high. It is kind of high for something so solid and so heavy by the weight that you gave as well. It's like generally quite impressive for its like ability, its movement ability.
I feel like they've really earned their dangerous reputation, because I don't know if I would throw this at a 5th level party now.
Yeah.
I mean, I would, but I don't know if you should. That the possibilities of taking down one PC, not like a total party kill, but I think that somebody's gonna die.
Especially with that idea of them popping into the wall and like tunneling through, and if you're in a narrow space, you could really goad someone into their own death.
For sure,
any player or character with a good amount of arrogance or hubris could really follow their death there. Really cool creature. I'm really jiving with it at this point.
Yeah, and there's not really anything I would change, and I don't have any personal experience with them. And I'm guessing by how we've talked, you haven't run one either.
No, but the only thing that's leaving me hanging is the purple worm thing. The purple worms being one of their primary foods. Onkegs I kind of get. They're almost another like sort of burrowing insectile creature, so I imagine they probably find themselves at odds fairly often.
You don't think a purple worm is a burrowing insectoid creature?
No. It's not that I don't think they would eat a purple worm. It's that a purple worm is so large that I would assume that it would feed a great many creatures for quite a long time. So it makes me wonder why they don't tend to gather. And now I'm sure a purple worm corpse is not exclusively, feasted upon by an Umber Hulk. Certainly not. However, it's to me, it's like a watering hole in the savannah of Africa. Everybody needs a bit of water. Everybody needs a bit of food. What is the circumstance that surrounds the corpse of a purple worm in the Underdark, and how does that affect the sort of culture and society of the Umber Hulk and other creatures, of course? That's where I feel like I'm wanting. I don't necessarily have an answer, or that it's not even necessarily a criticism. It's just like it begs the question. How does that turn out for Umber Hulks as a populace, or any other creature surrounding that situation?
I have 2 thoughts. The first is it's probably not a full-size purple worm. It's probably wormlings or eggs.
Sure.
The second thought is, if you want to see what that effect is on an ecosystem relative to our world, in the documentary Blue Planet, the episode Deep Oceans, there's like a good 30-minute segment on a whale corpse falling to the bottom of the ocean.
Yes. Yes, it's so good. That's a very good comparison. And it goes for a long time, doesn't it?
It is. I want to say it's entirely too long, but it's really eye-opening.
It's crazy.
Like they filmed the whole thing. They must have filmed it for like a week.
Oh, for sure they did. Yeah, they groundbreaking filming for that series. Yeah, that's a really cool comparison. That's definitely how I imagine it. So I mean that's cool, because it means then an Umber Hulk might pop in, have their fill, pop out, maybe come back for seconds or thirds, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're gathering, because there's probably going to be all sorts of creatures getting up in that, and maybe there's a sort of natural and general sense of like, okay, we're all here for the same thing. Let's just call it there. We'll just be cool about it.
Yeah, and that's what that whale corpse kind of does in that, as well as like watering holes in the savannah and stuff like that. They're kind of like DMZs,
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah. Especially in the case of this, where I don't need to attack you because my food's right here. We're sharing that, Normally I would, because I'm hungry, but now I'm not. So we're good. We good till then, till later on. Totally. Okay. Begging question answered.
All right. Well, if you have any more questions about how Underdark ecology relates to the real world, specifically ocean stuff, I have seen a lot of underwater documentaries, and you can find me on Twitter @EncounterPod. If you want to discuss this purple worm ecology a little bit more with Freeman specifically, you can get at him at instagram.com/encounter.pod. We can both be reached at facebook.com/encounterpod. If you really like this episode and you want to help feed us and contribute to our ecology, we can be found at patreon.com/encounterthis. $1 a month will get you access to all of our show notes in our private Discord. $5 a month will get you handwritten thank you letter, and $10 a month you can suggest that purple worm or whatever else. Wookiees, I don't know. Some Starfinder creature. Whatever you're into. And if you want to see any of the reading materials that we used for this particular episode, which was none of them, as well as one website I used to Google Stranger Things. You can find all that at our website at encounterthis.ca. I guess thank you for listening. I mean, definitely thank you for listening, but...
Nah, fuck 'em. Look, if you're going to be non-committal, you might as well commit.
I guess so, yeah. That adds up.
Yeah, totally.
All right, creatures. We'll see you in 2 weeks.
Thanks, friends. All right, am I supposed to read the whole thing that's after Freeman here?
You're welcome to. I would.
Okay,
it felt like such low hanging fruit that I needed to address how low hanging it was.
I reviewed it in my head beforehand before you even jumped to Discord. I thought, oh, we're already going to have a laugh about how stumbly this is.